How you doing? Bit of a step ahead of myself with the show and tell. But I'll let you work out what's showing and telling. I've got a coming of age story for you tonight. Set back in New Zealand, back in my teenage years, and without further ado, Harvey Wallbanger. Try your father's trousers, Marge yelled down the passage. I was rifling through Dad's wardrobe looking for some pants to wear that weren't jeans. Dad's wardrobe was full of interesting things. A Lee Enfield 303 that doubled as a hat stand for his Harris tweed cap. A couple of bayonets to fit the 303. A selection of World War II helmets and a few boxes of ammo on top of a pile of old Playboy magazines. The brown slacks were hanging at the back of the rack next to his dark green woolen jacket. That'll do, I said to myself as I spotted the beige shirt looking like it might fit. Fucking hush puppies. I was looking down at Dad's selection of heinous brown leather shoes. Instead of the hush puppies, I opted to risk a potentially violent reprisal by taking my brother's embroidered leather cowboy boots. Yeehaw. Bananas at Large was a nightclub, was the place to be seen in Napier circa 1981. We had no idea what to expect. Fuck man, what do you think it'll be like? Garth asked, knowing full well we had no idea what the inside of a nightclub might be like. Full of chicks, man. You might even get a pash, Brett replied, knowing full well that Garth wouldn't be getting a pash. It was our main topic of conversation all week at school. We'd barely turned 15, and now that we were licensed to drive, the world was our oyster, and chicks were front of mind. Think we might meet anyone? Garth asked, hopeful of notching up his first pash. Nah, Gav said a little disinterestedly. He was already shagging Brett's sister. What are we going to drink? Gav asked thoughtfully. Harvey Wallbangers, Brett replied. According to his brother, they kick ass. It was thus agreed that our first drinks at a licensed establishment would be Harvey Wallbangers. At 7 on the dot, Garth's Mark I Ford Cortina station wagon pulled up the drive of Marge and Neil's. The boys piled out and came inside. Dad laughed as we stood around nervously in the lounge. Cortina's got a loose tie rod end, Gary, Dad said to Garth, mixing him up with one of my brother's mates. He'd already been out to check the free play and the Cortina's steering. Oh, you boys look handsome, Marge said proudly. It was in fact the first time she'd seen us wearing something other than jeans and t-shirts. We looked like four dorks wearing our father's interpretations of 70s fashion. Garth, make sure you don't drink too much tonight. Remember you're driving, Marge said, showing genuine concern. Garth just laughed. We had in fact experimented with alcohol already, mainly Karuba rum. But so far, my experiences had been, well, unpleasant. But if at first you don't succeed, try again. The 20 kilometres to Napier were driven as if it were a race. This was standard procedure at the time. We were running high on testosterone and a new sense of freedom. The Cortina was a 66. Its feeble brakes were rarely used, and any dampening had long since vanished, rendering the suspension useless. It had vinyl bench seats, front and rear, and could comfortably accommodate 6 people, plus 2 or 3 in the boot if necessary. How old are you going to say you are, Brett asked Gav. 21. 22, Brett announced, confident in his ability to pull off 22. Garth piped in from the driver's seat. 21, you think we'll get in? It was only a few months earlier that Marge had dropped us off at the movies. The Boys from Brazil was rated R16, and we were 14 at the time. Luckily, Mum was still waiting out the front in Morris, Oxford, when we walked straight back out of the theatre, having been refused entry. It was around 8 p.m. when we found a park around the corner from Bananas at Large. We strutted up the footpath feeling cool, even though my flared slacks were already 5 years out of date. As we got closer, the adrenaline started kicking and the boys were pumped. Standing at the doors to Bananas at Large were two extra large Maori bouncers dressed in black. They spotted us 50 metres down the footpath and had already assessed that there was no need to put on their tough faces. The mean bastards were doing their best not to completely crack up laughing as we walked. Not tonight, boys, the one with the teardrop tattoo just below his eye said. Strictly no fancy dress, bro, the other said before bursting into laughter. Try the Terminus Hotel down by the train yards, Teardrop said, nodding in the Terminus's general direction. Garth floored the Cortina as he performed a U-turn out the front of Bananas at Large. The inside rear wheel lifted off the road and let out a squeal as it regained contact. The Cortina sped down the road, its clutch slipping like mad. We walked into the Terminus Hotel public bar with a lot less confidence than we had strutting up to Bananas at Large. We were met with a deafening silence as the four little white boys entered the domain of the predominantly Maori railway workers. The wall of dark blue overalls and steel-capped boots stopped and turned around to see what the fuck had just walked into their car. It's the fucking Bee Gees, someone yelled out. A second later, they resumed drinking and playing pool. We pulled up stools at one of the steel and formica tables. Who's getting the drinks, Garth asked. I will. Harvey Woolbangers? I asked, looking at the boys. Fuck yeah, man, Harvey Woolbangers, Brett confirmed. Up at the bar. What will it be, man? A 30-something-year-old barman asked. 4 Harvey Woolbangers, please. He eventually said, yeah, sure, smiling after a pause that lasted forever. Then he walked through to the lounge bar. 5 minutes later, he returned with 4 Harvey Woolbangers. These were chased down by 4 jugs of lime brown, a horrible beer that was sweet, weak, and tasted like cat's piss. We were reasonably drunk when we left the Terminus Hotel just before 10 o'clock closing. As we climbed into the 66 Cortina, one of the bros who was sharing a joint in the car park yelled out, "Do a burnout, cuz!" Garth did not need to be asked twice, and before Gav, who was sitting in the front and fortunate enough to have a seatbelt, could buckle up, Garth floored the Cortina and dropped the clutch. The Cortina's right back wheel broke traction in a shower of gravel. Garth slammed the Cortina into second gear and dropped the clutch. Again we broke traction, bouncing onto the road in a cloud of dust and driving off into the night.